Now we will discuss the two theories under the deontological ethics branch. Okay, so the first one is the Kant's categorical imperatives. Now this theory was propounded by Immanuel Kant, who was a German philosopher. Okay, now what he says is that Immanuel Kant believed that there are set moral obligations that one must follow. Okay, the important term here is set moral obligation. Now again revising, in deontology, that is duty ethics, we have learned that this theory says that your action will be called as moral only when the inherent quality of action is good. Okay, now Immanuel Kant is further developing this and he is saying that there are certain set moral obligations. Okay, and this set moral obligations must be satisfied for an action to be inherently good. Okay, now further, these moral obligations are to be derived from pure reason, which are called as categorical imperative. So there are two more important terms here. The first one, that Immanuel Kant is saying there are set moral obligations. Now from where these set moral obligations will come? So he is saying that this will be derived from pure reason, from our own consciousness, from our own conscience reason, this moral obligation will be derived. Now these moral obligations are called as categorical imperatives by Immanuel Kant. So we have to understand that this term, the categorical imperative term, it is not a new term. This is only a phrase given by Immanuel Kant for the term moral obligation. Okay, if you go by English, then that word obligation is similar to the word compulsory, necessary, or we can say imperative. When we say this is imperative for you to do this, in other words, it is compulsory, it is mandatory, or we can say the person is obliged to do that thing. Okay, so moral obligation is same as categorical imperative for Immanuel Kant. Okay, now if he is saying that moral obligations are to be derived from pure reason, then there must be some base to decide that they are moral obligation. So he is further developing this pure reason part, and what he is saying is that there are two essential features of categorical imperative. So your moral obligation must satisfy these two essential features. If these two essential features are satisfied, then this come under the category of set moral obligation, and hence the inherent quality of your action will be good, and hence your action will be called as moral one. Because if we go back in deontology, it is saying that whether an action is ethical or not, moral or not, is determined by some inherent quality in the action itself. Okay, so according to Immanuel Kant, we can finally say that the two essential features, if they get satisfied, then the action will be good. Now what are these two essential features? The first one is the universalizability principle, and the second one is the formula of humanity. Okay, so let us understand these two terms one by one. Now the first essential features, the universalizability principle. The word itself is helping us to understand completely. So what is the statement saying? The moral obligation must be universal without any contradiction. The moral obligation must be universal without any contradiction. In simple term, it should be universally applicable. There should not be any exception, any contradiction. Okay, that is, everyone's reason should permit and accept an obligation as moral. Very simple. Immanuel Kant is saying that moral obligation will flow from your own reason, and he is further saying that everyone's reason should permit and accept an obligation as moral. So if there are some obligations which are permissible or which are permitted by everyone in this universe, then those must be satisfied in your action. Only then the inherent quality will be good. Okay, So this was the first principle, the universalizability principle. Now the second is the formula of humanity. Now what it mean by this? So let us first read the statement. The moral obligation should treat all humans as ends in themselves, and not as means to achieve ends. This is a important phrase which frequently comes in the theoretical discussion of various topics, psychology, philosophy, ethics, and so on. That is, treating humans as end in themselves and not means to achieve ends. By an example only you will be able to understand. You must have known about the practice of slavery. Okay, the practice of slavery which was prevalent in your medieval era. Okay, a large number of people from African continent were transferred to American continent, and they were compulsory required to work at the fields, and the conditions of work was very inhuman. Okay, in our India itself, in previous time the caste system was rigidly followed. Okay, the untouchability practice was rigidly followed, and one human did not treat another human as his equal. Okay, so in previous time another human was used for your own work. Okay, and this is an example. In there could be several examples in which such type of practices was followed. So in simple term, a human being was not treated as an actual human being. Okay, so this is the concept what the formula of humanity is saying. Immanuel Kant is saying that if your action is treating all humans as ends in themselves, that is human itself, not the means to achieve your ends, then your moral obligation becomes satisfied. It implies that your action has an inherent good quality, and finally your action is ethical. Okay, so this formula of humanity in present time is accepted throughout the world. Now we do not permit such type of actions which does not treat human as equal. Okay, so there are two principles, again revising: the universalizability principle, that is everyone's reason is permitting and accepting an obligation as moral. Okay, in simple term, that everyone accepts certain things to be moral, then the moral obligation gets satisfied. And the another is the formula of humanity, that is you must treat all humans as equal, that is human beings, not your means to achieve it. If two things are satisfied, then we can say that the categorical imperative, the important term, the categorical imperatives are satisfied. Okay, so these two are the imperative we must understand. Universalizability principle is the imperative, and the humanity principle is imperative. Okay, now this was the first theory under deontological ethics, duty ethics. Now we'll take the second part of it, that is John Rawls contractualism theory. Thank you.